Now the Lord had told Samuel in his ear a day before Saul came, saying, Tomorrow, about this time, I will send thee a man out of the land of Benjamin, and thou shalt anoint him to be captain over my people Israel, that he may save my people out of the hand of the Philistines, for I have looked upon my people, because their cry is come unto me. And when Samuel saw Saul, the Lord said unto him, Behold, the man whom I spake to thee of, this same shall reign over my people. So we see here that Saul was clearly chosen by God. God doesn't make accidents. He was clearly chosen. And if we read, if we go to verse 21, verse 21. And Saul answered and said, Am I not a Benjamite of the smallest of the tribes of Israel, and my family the least of all the families of the tribes of Benjamin? Wherefore, whence speakest thou so to me? So we see here Saul is, he's humble in the beginning here. We see at the start of his reign, he's quite humble. He's saying, hey, I basically come from this small tribe. How could I be a king? And if we go to 1 Samuel 10, verse 1, then Samuel took a vial of oil and poured it upon his head and kissed it and said, Is it not because the Lord hath anointed me to be captain over his inheritance? And if we go down to verse 6, we see, And the Spirit of the Lord will come upon thee, and thou shalt prophesy with them, and shalt return into another man. So we see God is with Saul here. Like it says in verse 6, God is empowering Saul. And God is always with Saul. And if we go to verse 8, where this is going to lead us, we go to verse 8 here. We see, And thou shalt go down before me to Gilgal, and behold, I will come down unto thee to offer burnt offerings and sacrifices of peace offerings. 7 days shalt thou tarry till I come to thee and shew thee what thou shalt do. So here we see Samuel clearly giving Saul instructions on the offerings. The point of the offerings was to prepare the nation spiritually and to have God help before battle. And if we go over to 1 Samuel 13:5, And the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is one seashore in multitude. And they came up and pitched in Mishmash eastward from Beth-aven. When the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and rocks and in high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him, trembling. Here we see the pressures rising here. Saul is put to his first big major test. We know in 1 Samuel 11, he had the win over the Ammonites. And so Saul started off strong, but this was his first really big test. The pressure was rising. Fear was an all-time high. Let's see what Saul did. And Saul said, Bring hither a burnt offering to me, and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he had made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, What hast thou done? And Saul said, Because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou comest not within the days appointed, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. And therefore I said, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication to the Lord. I forced myself, therefore, and offered a burnt offering. And Samuel said to Saul, Thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept my commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. And so we see what Saul did. He took matters into his own hands. When the pressure was all-time high, fear was all-time high, he did what he thought was best in the situation. And a lot of times, in our lives, we're faced with an issue, whether it be financially, heartache, whatever it may be, health reasons. Instead of seeing what God has to say about our situation, we go ahead and take the comfort. Saul took the comfort way. He could be comfortable right now and do the offering himself. As he said, the offering had not been done. He went and did it himself, seeking comfort, and went with the choice of doing it himself rather than seeking instructions and waiting and having faith. Sometimes we may not have faith, and we go ahead and take matters into our own hands, and as we see, Saul was punished. We later find that due to Jonathan's faith, they got out of that hopeless situation, but it was a hopeless situation at the time. And then this takes us to This takes us to 1 Samuel 15:3. And now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both men and women, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together, and numbered them in Telam, 200,000 footmen, 10,000 men of Judah. And Saul came to the city of Amalek, and lay wait in the valley. And Saul said unto the Canaanites, Go, depart, get ye down from among the Amalekites, lest I, all the children of Israel, when they came up out of Egypt. So the Canaanites departed from among the Amalekites, and Saul smote the Amalekites from Hezbollah until the comest to Shur, that is over against Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed them, all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep and the oxen, and of the fatlings and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refused, and they destroyed utterly. Then came the word of the Lord unto Samuel, saying, And repent of me, that I have set up Saul to be king, for he has turned back from following me, and hath not performed my commandments. And it grieved Samuel, and he cried unto the Lord all night. So we see here Saul, he was given clear instructions by God to slay all the Amalekites, all the livestock, everything. And as we see here, he didn't follow what he was asked to do. If we keep reading, and Samuel says, What meaneth then he is bleeding of the sheep in mine ears? In this verse 12. And when Samuel rose early to meet Saul in the morning, it was told Samuel, saying, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set him up a place, and is gone about, and passed on, and gone down to Gilgal. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said unto him, Blessed be thou of the Lord, I have performed the commandment of the Lord. And Samuel said, What meaneth then this bleating of sheep in mine ears, and the lowing of oxen which I hear? And Saul said, They have brought them from the Amalekites, for the people spared the best of the sheep and the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. Then Samuel said unto Saul, Stay, and I will tell thee what the Lord hath said to me this night. And he said to him, Say on. And Samuel said, When thou wast little in thine own sight, was thou not made the head of the tribes of Israel, and the Lord anointed thee king over Israel? And the Lord sent thee on a journey, and said, Go on and utterly destroy the sinners and the Amalekites, and fight against them until they be consumed. Wherefore then didst thou not obey the voice of the Lord? Didst thou fly on the spoil, and thou didst evil in the sight of the Lord? And Saul said unto Samuel, Yeah, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag and the king of Amalek, and utterly destroyed the Amalekites. But the people took of the spoiled sheep and oxen, the chief of the things which should have been utterly destroyed, to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God in Gilgal. So we see here, because Saul didn't obey clear instructions, he tries to kind of lie his way out. He says that he did what he was told, but he only partially obeyed, he didn't fully obey, because he spared the king, spared the livestock. And Samuel calls him out for this, for disobeying, and Saul gives the excuse that the livestock was spared for offerings, and he says that the livestock was spared for offerings, and we also see, this is where Samuel says, hearken, then the fat of rams, then the fat of the rams, which basically what hearken means in this situation is paying attention and specifically obeying God's commands. And it says, then the fat of the rams, which the fat of the rams was the best part and was specifically saved for the offerings at the time. This was the best part. This was offered to God. And a lot of times we see this and we see Saul wasn't fully surrendered. Saul wasn't fully surrendered, and we see later on that Saul makes the excuse that he was actually scared of what the people might think of him. And so a lot of times, as Christians, we're also called to go soul winning, and because of what people may say or think about us, we may not fully obey what God has for us. We may not go soul winning, whether it be in work, school, whatever it may be. Because I know me personally, sometimes I think I'm scared of preaching the gospel to individuals because of what certain people might think of me, what other people around me might think. And so let's not be like Saul, and let's prioritize, the Lord. And we get two things out of this. We can obey God partially. We can go to church, we can sing, we can preach, we can treat our relationship with God more like a hobby. I wrestled some time ago, back in high school, which was like a year ago I graduated. It wasn't that long ago. And I remember the coach said one time, wrestling is like a lifestyle. And it kind of didn't make sense to me because I'm thinking, I go to practice, I go to practices after school, I go to the competitions. Well, what do you mean it's like a lifestyle? But after thinking upon it a little bit more, there's more that goes into it. You need to be sleeping the right amount. You need to be your diet to make weight. Your diet needs to be on point. And the Christian life is very similar like this. A lot of us, for me, sometimes I was treating my relationship with God more like a hobby. I was showing up to church. I was praying here and there. Doing some things, but I was still disobeying God in private, which is basically what kind of Saul did here. He partially obeyed. I was partially obeying, but not fully obeying. And another thing is that because we're not fully surrendered, when we're not fully surrendered and ready to give up everything that we should be giving up, this is where we partially obey and we disobey as well. Disobey in private because we're not willing to give up everything that we should be giving up and be fully surrendered. And due to Saul not being fully surrendered, God chose David instead. As we read later on, God ended up choosing David to do great things. And Saul, it just led to Saul being bitter. We see, I'm not going to go over all the text, but we know that Saul grew bitter and lived on being bitter. So as the new year starts, I just want us to be fully surrendered unto God. Let's not be like Saul. Let's get used to our full potential. Whether it may be soul winning, praying. Really praying for people, praying for anything. Just really be surrendered and see what we can do, even in this church, to help out and just be surrendered unto God. And just like we see here, Saul was called, but like Judson said, we need God. God doesn't need us. So, and this is what we see here clearly with Saul.